Captain Marcus Chen stepped off the shuttle and onto the golden platform of Zephyr Prime. The air here felt different. It was thicker, almost sweet, and it made his skin tingle. Above him, tall spires of crystal reached toward purple skies. Everything here seemed to glow with its own light. Marcus adjusted his formal blue uniform and checked his translation device one more time. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Earth needed this trade deal. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the most important shipping routes in this part of the galaxy. Without their friendship, Earth would remain stuck on the edge of space, unable to grow. A group of tall, elegant beings waited for him. The Zephyrians looked almost human, but their skin had a silver shine to it. Their eyes were large and completely black, like deep pools. Some had small crystals growing from their foreheads and arms. They wore flowing robes that seemed to change color as they moved. "Welcome, human," said the tallest one. His voice echoed in Marcus's mind rather than his ears. "I am Lord Kavek, advisor to His Imperial Majesty. The Emperor awaits you." Marcus nodded politely. He had studied their customs for months. "I am honored to be here, Lord Kavek. Earth sends its friendship to the mighty Zephyrian Empire." Several of the Zephyrians made soft, clicking sounds. Marcus realized they were laughing at him, though he did not understand why. His words had been correct according to his training. They led him through halls of living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft light, and Marcus could hear whispers in languages he did not know. Other Zephyrians stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some pointed. Others made the same clicking sound he had heard before. The throne room was huge. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, and the floor was made of smooth black stone that reflected everything like a mirror. At the far end, on a throne that seemed carved from a single massive crystal, sat Emperor Valdris. The Emperor was ancient, even by Zephyrian standards. His skin had a deep silver color, and dozens of crystals grew from his body. They formed a crown-like pattern around his head. His eyes glowed with a cold blue light. "So," the Emperor's voice filled Marcus's mind, "Earth has finally sent us their representative. How small you are." Marcus felt the insult, but kept his face calm. "Your Majesty, I come with great respect for your empire and hope for friendship between our peoples." The Emperor laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. "Friendship? Tell me, little human, what can your young race possibly offer us? We have traveled the stars for 10,000 years. We have built empires while your kind still lived in caves." "We offer new ideas, Your Majesty. Different ways of seeing problems. Earth's people are good at finding solutions where others see only walls." "How amusing." Emperor Valdris stood up from his throne. He was nearly 8 feet tall. "You speak of solutions. Very well. I have a problem that has troubled my empire for centuries. Perhaps you can solve it." The Emperor raised one hand, and the great doors at the side of the throne room opened. A figure walked through, and Marcus felt his breath catch. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Her skin was pale silver, almost white, and her hair was long and black with silver threads running through it. Small crystals grew along her collarbones and around her eyes like jewels. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to float around her. "This is my daughter, Princess Lirelai," the Emperor said. "She is 350 years old and the most brilliant scientist in our empire. She has studied the biology of every known race in the galaxy." The princess walked forward with grace, but Marcus noticed something in her eyes. She looked tired, and there was pain there. She bowed slightly to her father, then looked at Marcus with curious eyes. "The problem," Emperor Valdris continued, "is that my daughter cannot have children. Our best doctors have tried everything. Our greatest scientists have failed. She is, as you might say, broken." Marcus heard gasps from around the room. Some of the court members were making that clicking sound again, louder now. Princess Lyrale's face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists. "In our culture," the Emperor went on, "a woman who cannot bear children has no value. She cannot marry. She cannot rule. She is nothing but shame to her family." His voice became cruel. "But perhaps a primitive human might find her acceptable. After all, your standards must be quite low." The throne room erupted with clicking laughter. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. They were using this woman as a joke, a way to humiliate both her and him. "I propose a challenge," Emperor Valdris announced. "Stay here for one full cycle of our moon. Court my daughter. Try to win her hand in marriage. If you succeed, Earth will have its trade agreement. If you fail—" He smiled coldly. "Well, I suppose you will slink back to your little world in shame." Marcus looked at Princess Lyrale. She was staring at the floor now, her cheeks flushed with silver blood. She was clearly embarrassed by her father's words. The whole thing was designed to make them both look foolish. But Marcus had not come this far to back down. Earth needed this chance, and something about the way the princess held herself, despite the pain in her eyes, told him she was stronger than her father thought. "I accept your challenge, Your Majesty," Marcus said loudly. "I would be honored to spend time with Princess Lyrale." The laughter in the room grew louder. Someone called out, "The fool doesn't know what he's agreeing to." Emperor Valdris clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Lord Kavek will explain our courtship customs to you. You will have access to our libraries, our gardens, and our laboratories. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly, human." As the court began to file out, still laughing and talking among themselves, Princess Lyrale looked up at Marcus for the first time. Her large black eyes studied his face as if trying to solve a puzzle. "You should not have agreed," she said quietly. Her voice was musical, even when sad. "You do not understand what you have gotten yourself into." Marcus stepped closer to her. "Then teach me, Your Highness. Help me understand." For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or hope. But then she turned away. "Follow me," she said. "If we are to do this foolish thing, we should at least do it properly." As Marcus followed her out of the throne room, he heard Emperor Valdris laughing behind them. The sound echoed off the crystal walls like the breaking of 1,000 windows. Princess Lyrale led Marcus through corridors he had not seen before. Here, the walls were softer, covered in what looked like living moss that glowed with gentle blue light. The air smelled of flowers he could not name. "These are the science quarters," she explained as they walked. "My father allows me to work here, since I cannot do anything else useful." Her voice was bitter. They entered a vast room filled with strange equipment. Tables covered in glass containers lined the walls. In the center, a large screen showed spinning models of complex molecules. Everything was neat and organized. The workspace of someone who cared deeply about her research. "This is impressive," Marcus said, and he meant it. The technology here was far beyond anything Earth had. Lyrale looked at him with surprise. "You understand what you are seeing?" "Some of it. I studied biochemistry before I joined Earth's diplomatic service. Nothing this advanced, but I know the basics." Marcus moved closer to one of the screens. "These look like genetic patterns." "They are." Lyrale's voice became more animated. "I study how different species can reproduce together. Most cannot, of course. Each race in the galaxy can only have children with their own kind." She paused, looking embarrassed. "Though apparently I cannot even do that." Marcus turned to face her. "What exactly is wrong? Your father said you cannot have children." But he did not explain why. Lyrale was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to one of her computers and brought up a display that showed two genetic codes side by side. "This is a normal Zephyrian female," she said, pointing to the left side. "And this is me." The right side looked similar, but Marcus could see differences, even with his limited knowledge. "My reproductive genes are different," Lyrelay continued. "Our doctors say they are damaged, broken. They cannot interact properly with male Zephyrian genetics." She touched one of the crystals on her collarbone. "I have been tested with hundreds of males. Nothing works." "Have you tried looking at it from a different angle?" Marcus asked. Lyrelay frowned. "What do you mean?" "Maybe the problem is not that your genes are broken. Maybe they are just different. Maybe they are waiting for something else." "Such as?" Marcus felt foolish even suggesting it, but he had to ask. "What about other species? Have you ever tested your genetics against non-Zephyrian males?" Lyrelay stared at him as if he had said something crazy. "Why would I do that? Interspecies reproduction is impossible. It has been tried thousands of times throughout galactic history. It simply does not work." "But has it been tried with humans?" "Humans have only been in space for a few decades. There has been no time for such studies." Lyrelay paused, thinking. "And besides, why would it matter? You are just another alien species." Marcus shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe humans are different somehow. We seem to be good at adapting to things. It is one of our strengths." Over the following days, Marcus visited Lyrelay in her laboratory every morning. At first, she was cold and distant, clearly expecting him to lose interest and leave. But Marcus kept coming back, asking questions about her work, offering ideas that often made no sense, but sometimes sparked new thoughts. Slowly, Lyrelay began to warm up to him. She started explaining her research in detail, showing him genetic maps and biological processes that fascinated Marcus, even though much of it was beyond his understanding. "Your mind works differently," she told him one afternoon. They were sitting in her garden, a quiet space filled with plants from many worlds. "When I show other Zephyrians my work, they see only the failure. You see possibilities." "That is because I am not trying to fix you," Marcus replied. "I do not think you are broken." Lyrelay looked at him with those deep black eyes. "How can you say that? I cannot fulfill the most basic function of my gender, according to Zephyrian rules. But what if the rules are wrong?" Marcus picked up a flower that had fallen from one of the trees. It was purple and silver, beautiful, but unlike anything that grew on Earth. "This flower could not grow on my world. Our soil is different. Our air is different. Our sun gives different light. But that does not mean the flower is broken. It just means it needs the right environment." Lyrelay was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You are suggesting that I might need a different kind of environment." "I am suggesting that maybe you are not the problem. Maybe the problem is that you have been trying to grow in the wrong soil." That evening, Lyrelay appeared at Marcus's guest quarters carrying a small device. "I want to try something," she said. "If you are willing." Marcus invited her in. His rooms were smaller than hers, but they had a nice view of the city lights below. "I want to run a genetic compatibility test," Lyrelay said. "Between your biology and mine. It will not hurt, just a small sample from each of us." Marcus nodded. "Do it." The test was simple. Lyrelay took a drop of blood from each of them and fed the samples into her device. Then they waited. "This will probably show nothing," Lyrelay said. "I have run this test so many times before with so many different males. It always shows the same result. Incompatible." The device beeped. Lyrelay looked at the screen and went very still. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Lyrelay did not answer. She reset the device and ran the test again. Same result. She ran it a third time. "This cannot be right," she whispered. Marcus looked over her shoulder at the screen. Even he could see that the two genetic patterns were interacting in ways that looked positive. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It means..." Lyrale's voice was shaking. "It means we are compatible. More than compatible. According to this, we are nearly perfect genetic matches." She looked up at him with wide eyes. "But that is impossible." Over the next week, they ran more tests. Each one confirmed the first result. Not only were Marcus and Lyrale genetically compatible, but their DNA seemed designed to work together in ways that neither of them fully understood. "I do not understand it," Lyrale said one night as they worked late in her laboratory. "Humans and Zephyrians evolved on worlds that are light years apart. How can our genetics fit together so perfectly?" "Maybe," Marcus said carefully. "It is not about where we evolved. Maybe it is about what we are inside." Lyrale looked at him. "What do you mean?" Marcus struggled to find the right words. "Humans have always been good at connecting with others, at making friends, forming families, building communities with people who are different from us. Maybe that shows up in our biology too. You think your genetics are designed for connecting? I think maybe human genetics are designed to be flexible, to work with others." Marcus smiled. "To find a way to make impossible things possible." Lyrale stared at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she leaned forward and kissed him. When they separated, she was crying silver tears. "I have been alone for so long," she whispered. "I had given up hope of ever having a real connection with anyone." Marcus pulled her close. "You are not alone anymore." Outside her laboratory windows, the crystal spires of the city glowed in the night. Neither of them noticed the small group of court officials who had been watching from the shadows, or the urgent message they sent to Emperor Valdris. The impossible was happening, and the Empire was not prepared for what would come next. 3 months had passed since Marcus first arrived at Zephyr Prime. His relationship with Princess Lyrale had grown stronger each day, though they kept their deepening feelings private. The court still whispered and laughed about the human who was trying to court the broken princess, not knowing how wrong they were. Marcus was reviewing trade documents in his quarters when Lyrale burst through his door. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I need to show you something." She held up a small medical scanner, the kind Zephyrian doctors used for health checks. The display showed symbols that Marcus could not read, but he could see Lyrale's excitement and fear. "What is it?" he asked, standing up from his desk. "I am pregnant." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stared at her, then at the scanner, then back at her face. That is wonderful, but how is that possible? I thought your doctor said..." "They said I could never have children with a Zephyrian male." Lyrale's voice grew stronger. "They never tested me with a human." She laughed, but it sounded almost hysterical. "We did it, Marcus. We proved them all wrong." Marcus pulled her into his arms. "This is amazing. You must be so happy." But when he looked at her face, he saw fear mixed with joy. "What is wrong?" he asked. "Everything," Lyrale said. "Do you understand what this means? For 300 years, I have been called barren, useless, a shame to my family. Now I am carrying a child, but not by a Zephyrian father. The court will call it an abomination. They will say I have polluted our bloodline." Before Marcus could respond, the doors to his quarters flew open. Lord Kavik entered with a group of Imperial guards. His face was cold with anger. "Princess Lyrale," he said formally, "your father commands your immediate presence in the throne room." Lyrale straightened her shoulders. "Very well. You too, human," Kavik added, looking at Marcus with disgust. They were escorted through the crystal halls like prisoners. Other members of the court watched from doorways and corners, whispering among themselves. Word had clearly spread quickly. Emperor Valdris was waiting in the throne room, but he was not alone. Dr. Zenth, the Empire's chief physician, stood beside the throne holding a medical scanner identical to the one Lyrelay had shown Marcus. "Is it true?" the Emperor demanded without waiting for them to approach the throne. "Yes, Father," Lyrelay said, lifting her chin proudly. "I am with child." "Impossible." Emperor Valdris stood up from his throne. "Dr. Zenth, explain to them why this cannot be real." The old doctor stepped forward. His skin was so pale it was almost transparent, and the crystals growing from his skull formed a complex crown-like pattern. "Your Highness," he said to Lyrelay, "I have examined you personally dozens of times. Your reproductive system is completely incompatible with Zephyrian biology. This pregnancy is medically impossible." "Then perhaps," Lyrelay said calmly, "your understanding of medicine is incomplete." Gasps echoed around the throne room. No one spoke to Dr. Zenth that way. "You dare question my expertise?" Dr. Zenth's voice rose with anger. "I have been practicing medicine for 800 years. I have studied every form of reproduction in the known galaxy." "Have you studied human reproduction?" Lyrelay asked. "Humans?" Dr. Zenth laughed harshly. "Those primitives have only been in space for a few decades. What could they possibly know about biology that we do not?" Marcus stepped forward. "Maybe more than you think." Emperor Valdris pointed one long finger at Marcus. "You! This is your fault, isn't it? You have somehow tricked my daughter into believing she carries your offspring." "It is not a trick," Marcus said firmly. "We ran extensive genetic compatibility tests. Human and Zephyrian biology can work together in ways you never imagined." "Lies!" Dr. Zenth shouted. "Interspecies reproduction is impossible. It has been proven thousands of times." "With other species," Lyrelay said. "Never with humans." Emperor Valdris walked down from his throne until he stood directly in front of his daughter. "Even if this is real," he said coldly, "do you understand what you have done? You are carrying a mongrel, a half-breed abomination. No Zephyrian will ever accept such a creature as legitimate." "Then perhaps the Zephyrians are wrong," Lyrelay replied. The Emperor's hand moved so fast that Marcus barely saw it. The slap echoed through the throne room like a gunshot. Lyrelay's head snapped to the side, and silver blood ran from the corner of her mouth. "You forget yourself," the Emperor hissed. "You are my daughter, and you will remember your place." Marcus stepped toward the Emperor, but the guards pointed their weapons at him. "Do not touch her again," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Emperor Valdris laughed. "Or what, human? You will challenge me? You are nothing here, less than nothing." "Father," Lyrelay said, wiping blood from her lip, "I am carrying your grandchild. You are carrying an alien creature that should not exist." The Emperor turned away from her. "Dr. Zenth, is there a way to remove this thing safely?" "Father, no!" Lyrelay stepped back in horror. "The pregnancy is still early," Dr. Zenth said thoughtfully. "Yes, it could be terminated without lasting harm to the princess." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. These people were talking about destroying his child as if it were a disease to be cured. "You will not touch her," he said. Emperor Valdris turned back to him with cold amusement. "You seem to misunderstand your position here, human. You have no rights in this empire, no voice, no power." His expression became cruel. "Though I admit, this situation presents an interesting opportunity." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "For months, you have been attempting to court my daughter as part of our little game. You have failed, of course, as we knew you would, but now you have done something far worse. You have contaminated our royal bloodline." The Emperor began to pace around them like a predator circling prey. The original terms of our agreement were simple. Court my daughter successfully, and Earth gets its trade deal. Fail, and you return home in shame. He smiled coldly. But what punishment fits the crime of defiling a Zephyrian princess? Marcus felt his stomach drop. What are you saying? I am saying that you and my daughter are no longer welcome in this empire. You are both banished, effective immediately. You have 1 hour to gather your belongings before my guards escort you to the spaceport. Father, Lyrelei stepped forward. This is my home. I am your daughter, your heir. You were my heir, Emperor Valdris corrected. Now you are nothing but a traitor who chose an alien over her own people. He turned to the guards. Remove them, and make sure every world in the Empire knows they are not welcome anywhere in Zephyrian space. As the guards surrounded them, Marcus took Lyrelei's hand. We will get through this, he whispered. Where will we go? She asked. I know nothing about life outside the Empire. We will figure it out, Marcus said. Together. Emperor Valdris called after them as they were led away. Enjoy your life in exile, daughter. I hope your alien lover and his mongrel child are worth losing everything. Lyrelei squeezed Marcus's hand tighter but did not look back. 1 hour later, they stood at the spaceport with only the clothes they wore and a few personal items Lyrelei had managed to pack. Marcus's diplomatic shuttle was too small for long-range travel, so they had booked passage on a freight hauler heading for the frontier worlds. As their ship lifted off from Zephyr Prime, Lyrelei watched her home planet shrink to a point of light through the small viewport. I am sorry, Marcus said. I never meant for this to happen. Lyrelei placed her hand on her still flat stomach. Do not apologize for giving me hope, she said. For the first time in 300 years, I am not alone. The freight captain, a gruff alien with blue skin and 4 arms, came to check on them. You folks picked an interesting time to leave Zephyrian space, he said. Word's already spreading through the comm networks about what happened. Half the galaxy's talking about the impossible pregnancy. Marcus and Lyrelei looked at each other. What are they saying? Lyrelei asked. The captain scratched his head with one of his extra arms. Depends who you ask. Some folks think it's wonderful. Others are scared out of their minds. He paused. But I'll tell you one thing. You two better be ready for a lot of attention wherever you end up. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them away from everything Lyrelei had ever known, neither of them could imagine just how much their child would change the galaxy. 3 years had passed since Marcus and Lyrelei fled the Zephyrian Empire. They had made their home on Crossroads Station, a massive trading post built inside an asteroid on the edge of civilized space. Here, beings from dozens of worlds came to trade goods and information, far from the watchful eyes of the major empires. Marcus worked as a translator and negotiator, helping solve disputes between different species. His human ability to understand and connect with others made him valuable to the station's management. Lyrelei had set up a research laboratory in an abandoned section of the station, where she continued her studies of interspecies biology. Their daughter, Elena, played in the corner of the lab while her parents worked. She was 3 years old now, and unlike any being the galaxy had ever seen. She had her mother's silver-tinged skin and her father's warm, brown eyes. Small crystals grew along her collarbones like her mother's, but they glowed with an inner warmth that was uniquely her own. Most remarkably, Elena could communicate telepathically like a Zephyrian, but she also had the human gift for connecting with others emotionally. She could make friends with anyone, regardless of their species, often bridging gaps that adults found impossible to cross. "Mama, look!" Elena called out in her musical voice. She was playing with Crick, a young Thraxian whose beetle-like appearance usually frightened other children. Elena had befriended him within minutes of meeting him, somehow sensing his gentle nature beneath his scary exterior. Lyrelei smiled at her daughter. "What are you two building?" "A house where everyone can live together," Elena said proudly. "Big enough for all kinds of people." Marcus looked up from his data pad, where he had been reviewing trade reports. "Speaking of all kinds of people living together, I got some interesting news today." "What kind of news?" Lyrelei asked. Marcus set down his pad and moved closer to her workstation. "Do you remember Captain Sarah Martinez? The human freighter pilot who helped us get established here?" "Of course. What about her?" "She just had a baby. With her Altarian partner." Lyrelei stopped what she was doing and stared at Marcus. "That is impossible. Altarians cannot reproduce with other species. Their biology is completely different from everyone else's." "That is what everyone thought," Marcus said. "But apparently it worked with a human. Just like it worked with us." Lyrelei's mind raced with possibilities. "That could be a coincidence. One unusual case." "There's more," Marcus continued. "I've been hearing similar stories from traders across the frontier. Humans pairing with Draconis, with Aquarians, even with the crystalline Vorthon. And in every case where they tried to have children together, it worked." Lyrelei stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that looked out at the busy docking bays. "That should be impossible. Every species in the galaxy has tried interbreeding at some point in their history. It never works. Ever. Except with humans," Marcus said quietly. "But why?" Lyrelei turned back to face him. "What makes humans different?" Before Marcus could answer, Elena ran over to them. "Daddy, Mr. Vex wants to know if you can help him talk to the angry bird people." Marcus smiled and picked up his daughter. Mr. Vex was one of the station's security officers, a tall reptilian being who often needed help communicating with difficult visitors. "Tell Mr. Vex I'll be right there," Marcus said. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, and Marcus knew she was sending the message telepathically to Vex, several decks away. After Elena ran back to play with Crick, Lyrelei looked thoughtful. "I need to run some tests," she said. "Compare human genetic patterns with other species. See if I can figure out what makes you different." "We," Marcus corrected. "What makes us different? We're partners in this, remember?" Over the following weeks, Lyrelei threw herself into her research with an intensity Marcus had not seen since their early days together. She obtained genetic samples from dozens of species and ran comparison after comparison. What she found shocked her. "Marcus, you need to see this," she called one evening. He came over to her main display, where genetic patterns swirled in complex three-dimensional models. "This is a standard Zephyrian genetic structure," she said, highlighting one section. "And this is Altarian, and this is Draconis." Each species had a distinct pattern, as different from each other as snowflakes. "Now look at this." She brought up a human genetic pattern. "Do you see it?" Marcus studied the display carefully. "It looks simpler than the others." "Not simpler, flexible." Lyrelei manipulated the image, showing how the human genetic code could shift and adapt. "Every other species in the galaxy has rigid genetic patterns. They can only connect with their own kind because their biological programming is too specific. And humans? Human genetics are like..." Lyrelei paused, searching for the right comparison. "Like a universal key. Your genetic code has sections that can adapt and match with almost any other sapient species." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "That sounds impossible." "It should be impossible. This kind of genetic flexibility doesn't happen naturally. It would take millions of years of evolution under very specific conditions." Lyrelei's voice grew excited and frightened at the same time. Unless what?" Unless humans were designed this way. They stared at each other in silence. Finally, Marcus asked, "Designed by whom?" Before Lyrelai could answer, their communication system chimed with an incoming message. Marcus accepted it, and the holographic image of Captain Martinez appeared in their lab. Sarah looked exhausted but happy. She held a small bundle in her arms, her hybrid baby with her Altarian partner. "Marcus, Lyrelai," Sarah said, "I wanted to thank you both. If you hadn't proven that human-alien children were possible, Jorak and I never would have tried." She smiled down at her baby. "Little Zara is perfect." "How is she doing?" Lyrelai asked. "Better than perfect, actually. The doctors say she has capabilities that neither Jorak nor I possess. Enhanced intelligence from the Altarian side, but with human emotional warmth. She's only 6 months old, but she's already showing signs of abilities that might change everything we know about genetics." After Sarah signed off, Marcus and Lyrelai sat in thoughtful silence. Elena had fallen asleep in the corner, curled up with Crick and 2 other alien children who had come to play. "There's something else," Lyrelai said finally. "I've been monitoring galactic news feeds. Reports of human-alien children are spreading across known space, and they're causing panic." "What kind of panic?" Lyrelai brought up a news display. Headlines scrolled past in dozens of languages. "Hybrid children threaten species purity." "Unknown genetic threat spreads across galaxy." "Ancient bloodlines in danger." "The major empires are scared," Lyrelai explained. "For thousands of years, they've maintained power partly because species couldn't interbreed. It kept everyone separate, easier to control. But if humans can create stable hybrid children with anyone..." Marcus understood. "It changes the entire balance of power in the galaxy. More than that, it threatens to make the old divisions meaningless. If children can be born with the best traits of multiple species, if genetic barriers break down..." Lyrelai paused. "It could unite the galaxy in ways no one has ever imagined." "Or tear it apart," Marcus added grimly. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the station's emergency communication system. A voice echoed through their lab. "All residents of Crossroads Station, please report to the main assembly hall immediately. We have visitors." Marcus and Lyrelai looked at each other with worry. Emergency assemblies usually meant trouble. They gathered Elena and made their way through the station's corridors, joining streams of beings heading toward the central meeting area. The assembly hall was packed with creatures of every description. At the front, Station Commander Thrall, a massive 8-armed being with purple skin, waited behind a podium. Beside him stood 3 figures that made Marcus's blood run cold. They wore the formal robes of Galactic Council representatives. The Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a unified government, though its power was often limited by the competing interests of major empires. "Citizens of Crossroads Station," Commander Thrall announced, his voice booming through the hall. "These representatives have come with an urgent announcement from the Galactic Council." One of the council members stepped forward. She was tall and thin, with skin like polished metal and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. "Citizens," she began, "the Council has become aware of a genetic anomaly spreading across civilized space. Human beings appear capable of producing viable offspring with other species, creating hybrid children with unprecedented capabilities." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Marcus felt Lyrelai's hand grip his arm tightly. "The Council has voted unanimously," the representative continued, "to declare these hybrid children a potential threat to galactic stability. All human-alien couples are ordered to surrender their children for study and evaluation. Any refusal will be met with the full force of Council law." The assembly hall erupted in angry voices. Marcus looked around and saw dozens of mixed couples in the crowd, human and alien families who had come to Crossroads Station seeking the same freedom he and Lyrelai had found. Elena tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, why is the metal lady angry at us?" Marcus picked up his daughter and held her close. "She's not angry, sweetheart. She's just scared." "Scared of what?" Marcus looked at his daughter's unique silver and brown eyes, at the small crystals that glowed with warmth along her collarbones, at the perfect blend of two worlds that she represented. "She's scared of change," he said, "and we're about to give her a lot more to worry about." In his arms, Elena smiled with the innocent confidence of a child who had never known a world where different species couldn't be family. She would help build that world, Marcus realized, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. The encrypted message came in the middle of the night, 2 weeks after the Galactic Council's announcement. Marcus woke to find Lyrelei staring at her personal communicator, her face pale in the soft glow of the screen. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up in their small bed. "A message from Zephyr Prime," she whispered. "From Lord Kavek." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What does he want?" Lyrelei read from the screen. "Your Imperial Highness, the Empire finds itself in desperate need of your expertise. His Majesty has fallen gravely ill, and the succession crisis has brought our people to the edge of civil war. We humbly request your return to help save our world. The message is signed by the entire Royal Council." "It's a trap," Marcus said immediately. "Maybe," Lyrelei agreed. "But listen to this part." She scrolled down. "We have learned of the Council's declaration regarding hybrid children. If you return, we pledge to protect your family and recognize your daughter as legitimate heir to the Zephyrian throne. The galaxy is changing, Highness, and we need leaders who understand that change." Marcus stared at the message in disbelief. They want Elena to be their heir? 3 years ago they called her an abomination. "Fear changes minds quickly," Lyrelei said. "If what Lord Kavek says is true, my father is dying and the Empire is falling apart. They need stability, and they need allies. With the Council hunting hybrid families, they might see us as their best hope." Elena appeared in their doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Mama, I had a strange dream. I dreamed we went to the Crystal City." Lyrelei and Marcus exchanged glances. Elena's dreams often contained elements of telepathic foresight, a hybrid ability that neither of them fully understood. "What happened in the dream, sweetheart?" Lyrelei asked. "Everyone was sad and scared," Elena said, crawling into bed between her parents. "But then we came, and the crystal started glowing again, and all the sad people became happy." Marcus looked at his wife. "What do you think?" "I think," Lyrelei said slowly, "that we cannot hide forever. The Council will find us eventually. At least on Zephyr Prime, we might have some protection." "And if it is a trap?" "Then we face it together," Lyrelei replied. "But I think Lord Kavek is telling the truth. The old ways are dying, Marcus. The question is what will replace them." 3 days later, their ship dropped out of hyperspace near Zephyr Prime. The planet looked the same from orbit, but Marcus could see signs of trouble. Several military vessels patrolled the space around the world, and the usual heavy merchant traffic was noticeably reduced. "Imperial Control, this is the transport vessel New Horizon requesting permission to land," Marcus spoke into the communicator. There was a long pause before a response came. "New Horizon, you are cleared for immediate landing at the Royal Spaceport. An escort will meet you." As their ship descended through the purple skies, Elena pressed her face to the viewport. "It's beautiful, Mama," she said. "But the crystal people feel scared." "You can sense them from here?" Lyrelei asked in surprise. Elena nodded. "There are so many of them, and they're all worried about something." The Royal Spaceport was heavily guarded, with soldiers wearing armor Marcus had never seen before. As they disembarked, Lord Kavek approached them. He looked older than Marcus remembered, and there was urgency in his movements. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply to Lyrelei, "thank you for coming. And you must be Elena." He knelt down to Elena's level. "I am honored to meet you, young princess." Elena studied him with her large, curious eyes. "You're scared too," she said matter-of-factly. "But you're also hopeful. That's good." Kavek looked startled by her directness. "She is remarkable." "She is 3 years old," Marcus said protectively. "Of course. Please, we must hurry to the palace. The situation is worse than my message indicated." As their transport flew over the Crystal City, Marcus could see what Kavek meant. Many of the great spires were dark, their usual glow dim or absent entirely. Streets that should have been filled with people were nearly empty. "What happened here?" Lyreley asked. "A plague," Kavek explained. "It began 6 months ago. Our birth rate has dropped by 70%, and our doctors cannot find the cause. The Emperor believes it is punishment for—" He glanced at Elena. "For past mistakes." "You mean for exiling me?" Lyreley said. "Among other things, but there is more. The Galactic Council has demanded that we turn over all humans in our territory for questioning. They believe humans are somehow behind the reproductive crisis affecting multiple worlds." Marcus felt a chill. "Are there other worlds with the same problem?" 17 so far, all major empires. Birth rates dropping, fertility declining, entire populations beginning to panic. Kavek looked grim. "Some are blaming humans. Others are starting to wonder if the old ways of thinking about genetics and reproduction might be wrong." They arrived at the palace to find it bustling with activity, but the energy felt desperate rather than purposeful. Guards and officials moved through the halls with worried expressions, and even the crystal walls seemed dimmer than Marcus remembered. Emperor Valdris was waiting in the throne room, but he was no longer the imposing figure Marcus had met 3 years earlier. The Emperor looked frail, his silver skin pale, and many of his body crystals darkened or cracked. He sat heavily on his throne, supported by medical equipment. When Lyreley entered with Marcus and Elena, the Emperor's eyes went straight to his granddaughter. Elena walked forward without fear, looking up at the huge crystal throne with curiosity rather than intimidation. "So," Emperor Valdris said, his voice much weaker than before, "this is the child I called an abomination." "Her name is Elena," Lyreley said firmly. "Elena." The Emperor repeated the name carefully. "Tell me, child, do you know who I am?" Elena tilted her head, studying her grandfather's face. "You're the sad king who made Mama cry. But you're sorry now." The Emperor's eyes widened in surprise. "You can read my thoughts?" "Not thoughts exactly," Elena said. "Feelings. You feel guilty and scared and—" She paused, concentrating. "Lonely. You've been lonely for a long time." Emperor Valdris closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet with silver tears. "She is remarkable," he whispered. "She is also in danger," Marcus said. "The Galactic Council wants to take her away for study. They see her as a threat." "Let them try," the Emperor said, his voice gaining some of its old strength. "They will find that Zephyr Prime is not as weak as they assume." Lord Kavek stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we should discuss the proposal." Emperor Valdris nodded slowly. "Lyreley, my daughter, I have a proposition for you. Return to your place as heir to the throne. Help us solve this reproductive crisis that threatens our people. In exchange, I will use the full power of the Empire to protect your family and others like you." "What exactly are you proposing?" Lyreley asked. "I want you to establish a new scientific institute here, focused on studying human genetic compatibility. Bring other mixed families to Zephyr Prime for protection. Use our resources to understand what makes humans special." The Emperor looked directly at Elena. "And I want to officially name your daughter as my successor, heir to the Zephyrian throne." The throne room erupted in whispers from the assembled court officials. Some sounded shocked, others excited. "The people will never accept a half-human ruler," one of the nobles called out. Elena stepped closer to the throne and looked up at her grandfather. "Can I try something?" she asked. Before anyone could stop her, Elena placed her small hand on one of the Emperor's darkened crystals. Immediately, it began to glow with warm light. The glow spread to other crystals on his body, then to the throne itself, and then throughout the entire throne room. Gasps echoed through the hall as the palace crystals blazed brighter than they had in months. But more than that, every Zephyrian in the room felt a wave of calm, hope, and connection wash over them through Elena's touch. "How?" Emperor Valdris whispered, staring at his granddaughter in amazement. "I don't know," Elena said simply. "I just wanted to make you feel better." Dr. Zenth, who had been silent until now, stepped forward with his scanner. "Your Majesty, her touch has somehow revitalized your crystal matrix. Your vital signs are stronger than they've been in years." Lyrelei stared at her daughter in wonder. "Elena, how did you do that?" "The crystals were sad," Elena explained. "Like Grandpa. They wanted to glow, but they forgot how. I just reminded them." Marcus felt an understanding beginning to form in his mind. "The reproductive crisis," he said suddenly. "What if it's not a plague? What if it's just sadness? Isolation? What if these species have been apart for so long that they're literally forgetting how to create life?" Dr. Zenth looked skeptical. "That is not how biology works." "Isn't it?" Lyrelei said, excitement growing in her voice. "We know that emotional state affects physical health. What if prolonged genetic isolation has created a kind of biological depression in entire species? And humans," Marcus continued, "with our ability to connect and bond with others, can somehow remind them how to live again." Elena nodded sagely. "Like making friends. When you make friends, everything gets better." Emperor Valdris stood up from his throne, moving more easily than he had in months. "Daughter, will you accept your place as my heir?" Lyrelei looked at Marcus, who nodded. "I will, father. But I have conditions." "Name them." "All human alien families who seek protection will be welcomed here. We establish the Institute for Interspecies Understanding with full imperial funding, and Elena grows up learning about both sides of her heritage." "Agreed." The Emperor turned to the assembled court. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy that Zephyr Prime stands with the new age of unity. We reject the Galactic Council's fear-mongering. The future belongs to those brave enough to embrace change." In the months that followed, Crossroads Station and dozens of other frontier worlds began sending mixed families to Zephyr Prime for protection. The Institute grew rapidly, with scientists from many worlds coming to study the phenomenon of human genetic compatibility. Elena became the symbol of this new age, a living proof that the galaxy's artificial divisions could be overcome. Her ability to heal and strengthen the crystal matrices that powered Zephyrian technology made her beloved by the people, while her simple wisdom about friendship and connection inspired beings across known space. The old emperor lived for 2 more years, long enough to see his empire transformed into something stronger and more beautiful than it had ever been. When he finally passed, he did so peacefully, surrounded by a family that bridged the stars. Princess Elena, now 5 years old and heir to an empire, stood with her parents on the palace balcony as representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for her grandfather's memorial service. The crystal spires of the city glowed more brightly than ever, powered not just by technology but by the connections between all the different peoples who now called Zephyr Prime home. "Will you miss him?" Marcus asked his daughter. Elena nodded. "But he's not really gone. He's part of the crystals now, and they remember everything. All the love, all the connections we make." She smiled up at her parents. That's what humans are really good at, isn't it? Helping people remember how to love each other. As the memorial ceremony began below, with beings from across the galaxy joining their voices in harmony, Marcus realized that Elena was right. Humanity's greatest gift to the universe wasn't technology or warfare or even genetic compatibility. It was the simple, revolutionary idea that different didn't have to mean enemies. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Marcus thought as he held his wife and daughter close, was exactly as it should be.